Recently, William Harris invited me onto his podcast to talk about, of all things, branding. Now, here's what you need to know. Ranked as the 12th fastest growing agency in the world by AdWeek,
Liftoff. We have a liftoff.
William runs his advertising agency specializing in e-commerce. What we talked about was off the charts. How to stay ahead not only of your competition, but to stay ahead of your customers and their needs even before they tell you. Why brands must foster curiosity. How to explain branding and the investment in branding to senior management and founders. We pull back the curtain on the expectation of exponential return when you're only being encouraged to make cautious and tentative initiatives. We also discuss why Walmart is the worst brand in the world. And we cover why conviction will outsmart and outperform the shiniest of objects and the newest of tech tools. So without further ado, let's check it out.
Hey everybody, William Harris here. I'm the founder and CEO of Elumynt and the host of this podcast where I feature experts in the D2C industry sharing strategies on how to scale your business and achieve your goals. I'm excited about the guest that I have today, David Brier, best-selling author of Brand Intervention and Google's #1 ranked rebranding expert. David's rebrands have generated over 7 billion worldwide. He is a native New Yorker and Google's top-ranked rebranding expert. David's 4 decades of branding expertise are sought after by companies of all sizes. In addition to David's work being featured at AdWeek, Fast Company, Forbes, Inc., Huffington Post, Entrepreneur, Thrive Global, I need a breath, the New York Times, and numerous blogs and podcasts the world over, he is the recipient of over 320 international awards, including the rare honor of being presented the Presidential Ambassador for Global Entrepreneurship Medallion. David, it is fantastic to have you here today.
Well, dude, thank you, William. I mean, this has been a long time coming, and I'm thrilled, man. I'm thrilled.
Likewise.
We've been friends and colleagues-ish, sort of in that space for, I don't know, several years at this point.
Yep. I can remember when we first met, I think it was through online, and then we ended up connecting in person, invited you out to Minneapolis, kind of shared a stage together. And so, yeah, we've gone way back. We are going to be talking about what's possible with branding in today's world, yep, how to recognize that you have a branding problem, and how to fix it. I've got a bunch of great insights from your Amazon bestseller. Let me just show everybody the book. I have it right here. Brand Intervention. You've got another new book on the way. We'll talk about that one a little bit later. Let's start off just talking about a little brag time here. You've worked on doing branding for Estee Lauder, Rolling Stone. You were telling me about one client that you had 300% growth in 30 days without launching a single new product. How?
Let's look at it really simply in a granular way. How does something first get onto our radar? It's not because of a pitch or a campaign or an offer or this, that, the other. It's like, what's that little lever, the little first lever that actually even gets them on our radar rather than just being one of the thousands of messages that we get every freaking day, right? I mean, we get bombarded, right? You and I and everyone listening to this, we get texts, we go on social media, we get pre-rolls, we get mid-rolls, we get post-rolls, we just boom, 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 boom.
Some belly rolls.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, exactly. And so what is that thing? And it is this element that thing was different enough. And I'll give you a fantastic example. Like 2023 has been the year of AI, right? Mm-hmm. Everything AI, and which I find interesting from one standpoint and pathetic from another standpoint. It's interesting because it shows it's a lot of potential, but at the same time, the internet when it first came out was a lot of potential. But
sure,
the first stuff out of the gate is crap. The first stuff out of the gate is just bleh, and everybody, despite there's no barrier to entry, so anybody with no talent, no judgment, mm-hmm, no experience can enter as quickly as someone with a lot of judgment, etc. So we've got this whole thing, but I literally saw in my email just a little bit ago before I came to the office, promptless AI. I was like, now wasn't that interesting? Because all of a sudden it's like they took AI, how the hell do you differentiate AI? It's like it seems almost impossible. Promptless AI. Whoa. Now that elevates it into a whole new realm. Like, whoa, does this AI mind read? Is it psychic? What the hell is the deal? But the little trigger and the point about this is it's different. It was different. It wasn't just, hey, we got really better AI, or we got AI that sounds more like you. Everyone's pitching, trying that's going to sound more natural and organic, and that. But it was like promptless AI. Okay, that was a differentiator. We notice differentiations. We notice things that are distinct. We don't notice. It's like we don't need another flavor. You know, it's like, what's the thing that's different? Everything from your product offering, your service offering, as well as how you communicate it. Like this chocolate brand, Midday Squares. You know, they've exploded and they came onto the marketplace, you know, where it's been dominated by Hershey's and Mars. And there's been like basically 4 key chocolate companies that have dominated the space. But they came in, it's a woman, her husband, and her brother. And it's the 3 of them. And they are rebellious. They are raw, they are unfiltered, and they're like, their whole thing is, we're gonna come in because it's spite, because we all can use something better instead of being dominated, boom, 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 boom. And so they're coming at it with like absolute, they're fire-breathing beasts, and they got no filter, man. You think I got a mouth. These guys are loud, but it's differentiation. Differentiation is how we did it, because on that particular brand, I mean, it literally was one store, boutique chocolatier, and I looked at what they were doing, and you know me, I'm a real, when it comes to being like good chocolate, I want only artisanal, amazing, high quality, good dark chocolate. And for those that are listening, do I love a Reese's peanut butter cup? Yes, I do. Okay,
yes.
But when I want to actually get serious about just sitting and enjoying, man, a really good handmade truffle or something like that, that's amazing. And these guys made amazing stuff. But their box looked like crap. First of all, it was flimsy. It was crappy. I already knew that their audience was 85% women. I already knew that. I came from a family where I have 2 brothers. Now, I married my wife out here in the Midwest. She had 2 sisters. Okay? And so I watched, whenever the sisters got together, I watched with fascination. I just watched how they interacted. I found this fascinating. To me, it was like a little mini documentary, a spontaneous documentary. I'm like watching it and learning, right? The stuff they could talk about, and just the things that seemed tangential, but to them it was like the entire universe. And so I built an entire brand, the box and everything. And the box was sturdy. I made a box that would have an afterlife in the home, because I knew that women were the audience. So I was going to have tons of cool chocolate trivia, little ridiculous bits of facts and things that you didn't know about, because at the same time as some people were approaching it like cosmetics is all about appearance. It's theater. It's like it has an aura of everything while saying nothing, right? It's how it smells, it's how you touch it, how you feel it. Ooh, the paper. Ooh, the foil stamping. Ooh. It has all these little ooh, but it doesn't say anything. It's like this aura of magnificence. You know, it's kind of like if Kim Kardashian were a box, that's what cosmetics would be. Because it's not like Kim Kardashian's ever shared with us, hey, I have something that's really going to change the quality of your life. She has a particular stratosphere where she exists, but it's not deep. Right? It's a particular layer. It was crazy. The box was sitting on the back counter. There were no new sexy people. There were no new flavors, no new products, no change in pricing, no promotions, no change in hours, nothing. The same people that were coming in for their coffee and espressos, tea, scones, muffins, chocolates, all this kind of stuff were coming in. But this box sitting on the back, they're like, oh, I'll take one of those. I'll take one. It blew them away because of the aesthetic, because it went against the grain. It was absolutely different, unlike anybody else. And they literally saw a 300% increase in truffles. And then and this was, by the way, in the summer when sales of chocolate is low.
Sure. Wow. I think the takeaway that I have from that you talked about is how, different is what gets our attention. It's what's good. And that can be different in a good way. It can be different in an abrasive way. There's a lot of different ways that it can be different.
There's every flavor different that there absolutely. It could be different in an ugly way. It could be different in a snarky way. It could be different in an aesthetic way. It could be different in a volume way. I mean, absolutely, totally.
but different cuts the noise. And, you know, I think about other brands that have done very well with this. Liquid Death has done very well with that. Like
Absolutely.
Abrasiveness.
Yep.
And I just like the idea of, you were talking about like that gets our attention. And I'm thinking about the way that we, let's say our brains work from a survival perspective. I've heard it said that we think logarithmically. We can understand the difference between 1 wolves, 3 wolves, and 9 wolves more intuitively than we understand the difference between, you know, 3, 4, or 5 wolves, because there was a big difference logarithmically to understand the difference between 1 wolf. Maybe I've got a chance. 3 wolves, I'm slim chance. 9 wolves, I don't have a chance, right? But like 3, 4, 5, it didn't matter as much to think linearly, and so it's that compounding difference that I think cuts through the noise from a survival basis. So I like where you went with that.
No, you actually make a very, very important point, which is it's like some companies or brands will want to let's take an incremental move. Let's do something. Let's do just a little. I'm like, and I will challenge that. I'll say, do you want an evolution or do you want a revolution? I say, you're trying. Don't expect exponential return on tentative initiatives. Let's do a little safe, you haven't moved the lever enough to know. Don't take such small incremental steps that it's like, well, something happened, but we don't know what caused it because the move was so subtle that basically you had to put it under a microscope to detect anything.
The entrepreneur in me loves the go big or go home kind of approach. So let's talk about, for brands who are looking at this, what are the warning signs, the telltale signs that you need a brand intervention, that branding is the thing? Because I work with brands all the time, and we are making a lot of those incremental changes, and that's what we should be doing as, you know, people who are managing their ad spend, where it's like, great, let's test this ad versus this ad, this landing page, and there is some value to that. But there comes a point where you say, this isn't the answer anymore. We've done what we can do within reason here. You need this bigger play. What are you looking at that you'd say this is the sign that it's time for brand intervention?
Well, the first thing the first myth that I want to absolutely blowtorch the hell out of existence is oftentimes when that's being done, it becomes an exercise in, let me look in the mirror and see if I can detect something. It's like this. Let's say you're going to an event and you're like, well, I really want to stand out at this event. And so I want to make a statement. I want to I'm going to the Met Gala or something like that. And I want to make a statement. And so now there's 2 ways you can approach this. You can approach it and you can look in the mirror and say, how can I be different? How can I be different? How can I be different? And you can keep asking the freaking mirror and the reflection and just keep looking at yourself. You're not going to make a lot of progress, which is what a lot of companies do. It's like, how do we know whether we should be there? No. How are you going to have the insight necessary to know if you need to make a shift? Now you need to look, okay, let me look at the guest list. Let me look at who's going to actually be at this event. What intel do I have with regard to what they're going to be wearing? Now with that information, I can now make an informed decision. How far do I need to pivot? A lot, a little, big, small, broad, bodacious, or very nuanced. So that's the point. It's like the first thing you have to do is you have to look and take inventory of, okay, if we're not making the kind of progress we want to be making, if we are plateauing, or if the competition is starting to increase and the noise is getting, now others are copying us, very common, because if you're going to get any level of success, people are going to copy you. Well, the only way to stay ahead is to stay ahead. Let me repeat that. The only way to stay ahead is to stay ahead. That means you need to be moving. That means you need to be looking into the future, not like tentatively, where it could be maybe, but that I cannot emphasize enough. Those of you that are listening, you need to slay the living shit out of tentative, let's tippy toe and let's be this cautiousness. You could do what you need to do. You could do the testing and you could do all that stuff. But if you don't have enough clear, bang, we really reached out into this direction, reached out into this direction, and these are clearly different from one another. How are we going to actually be able to conclude anything? And how is the audience out there going to be able to differentiate and distinguish us from our competition? Yeah. Be bold. And being bold doesn't always mean being loud. It doesn't always mean being obnoxious. It doesn't always mean dropping F-bombs like Gary Vee. That's not what I mean by being bold. I mean, have conviction. Take a stand Wherever your stand is, you may be a hardcore traditionalist in your space. You know, we're really traditionalists. Well, then be the most hardcore traditionalist there ever freaking was. That's the kind of fire you need to lean into it. Or you could be anything, but do it with conviction, do it not in a tentative way, and do it with boldness so that you know where you stand and the people out there can actually hear you and you can get on their dial, because tentative shit is going to get you tentative shit results.
Yeah, it actually reminds me of something that is in your book here that I have dog-eared. I have so many pages dog-eared from this. You wrote, "There's a law you must know. If your brand's using cliches, you're promoting your category, not your brand."
Yep.
And I like that, because that's that whole like generic stuff that's not making a difference unless you actually kind of, like you said, take a stand, be bold.
Yeah. And here's this one little other nugget I'll share with you and the listeners, is that when people talk to me about a brand loyalty and various things of that nature, I tell them, you know, the one brand that I would absolutely never want to ever be under the sun would be Walmart. And they're like, what? And I'm like, yeah, you know why? Because Walmart, actually, they don't have any customers that are loyal to the Walmart brand. They're loyal to the low price. If another company came along and said, hey, anything you can get at Walmart, you can get for 5% cheaper at our place, those people are going to split, because the only differentiator they have is price, right?
Sure.
And so the people are loyal to the price, not the brand. Walmart happens to own that, and because they're negotiating and their business model and all that kind of stuff. But I wouldn't want no customer loyalty to my brand. They're only loyal to the lowest price out there.
Yeah, that makes it hard to compete.
Yeah.
Let's talk about this. So you need to know your brand.
Yeah.
I've said before to people that I think you can get to 10 million without having a really massively clear brand. Now that's hard, and that's not true for everyone, but I think that you can do that. And I've seen a lot of people do that without having a very clear brand. But you can't grow beyond that without having a clear brand. How are you thinking about developing that clear brand? What are others that you're seeing in the space? Or like, how do you go from having a kind of brand to a very clear brand? What's that process?
If I can't identify what your brand is, like, for example, I mean, what's the difference between an Apple iPhone and a Samsung? Technologically, probably not a lot.
Not much.
Not much. But there are those who are absolutely freaking diehard loyal to Apple, right?
Mm-hmm.
It started out, first of all, it was connected with a human being. In my experience, some of the best brands and sustainable brands actually do have a human voice. In other words, we certainly, for those of us who have been around, we know, okay, Steve Jobs, Apple, great. Richard Branson, Virgin. Harley Davidson, it's like not as much, but the bottom line is the individual. Harley is so connected to a lifestyle that individual on the open road is the human connection.
Sure.
You know, and you could look at tons of entrepreneurs. You could look at Mark Cuban. You could look at Damon John. You could look at Grant Cardone. You could look at the Spanx CEO. You could look at all of these individuals. To me, there's a human quality that if that's there, that makes it a hell of a lot easier. Now, when I say human quality, let's raise our IQ a little bit and recognize this. When I get onto my Delta airline and I see the CEO delivering that stupid thing, helping people,
Sure.
One flight at a time, blah, 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 blah. There's nothing human there. There's no personality, because we as brands there must be a clear hero and a clear villain. If you don't have a clear hero and a clear villain as part of your brand story, your growth will be absolutely limited, completely. You've got to have something that I'm like, yeah, man, they got my back. I love that, right?
Yeah.
And I hate that crap too. It's like, liquid death. Yes, they have their personality, but besides the personality, and I love their language and their marketing. They're just off the charts, crazy.
Absolutely.
But they've taken water and put it in a can. I mean, what? It's like, what is it? But yet they ended up with this, getting I think it was $125 million investment like not too long ago. So
Yeah.
but it was clear who the hero was and who the villain was. I mean, what brands do you like?
I'm a diehard Apple fan, right? I've got everything Apple.
Me too.
And beyond that, I'm not a huge brand loyalist. I'm not a huge just consumer, which is an interesting thing, right? I think I like to approach things very, very, very methodically when I go to do this. So I am the person who will create the spreadsheet of all of the different options and try to find the one that is the right option for me.
Seriously?
This creates, oh, absolutely. And it's annoying. And
for speakers?
It's well, yeah, I mean, for just about anything, which is, I will say, is a problem. It creates a analysis of paralysis of sorts for a lot of things, and I struggle with some of those things. But if it's Apple, I don't think twice about it. I'm like, yep, that's the one I want.
Yep.
I don't have to even compare the features.
Yep.
You talked about even with having this enemy in there, and Apple in its early days did that as well. Now, they don't do that as much now, but they did that. They had the enemy. They had the 1984 commercial.
Yep.
They ended up having like the Mac versus PC sort of thing.
Yep.
And I think in order to understand who your enemy is, you need to understand your audience. And I think that's something that Liquid Death did a great job. To your point, and this is a quote that you have in your book as well, David Ogilvy said something along the lines of like, there's literally not much materially different between the different products, the different detergents, the different waters, the different whatever. The difference is knowing your audience, knowing what they see as a hero and what they see as an enemy, and how can you make sure that you align towards those things.
Yeah. Yeah. And that has to do with values. This is a point that too few, again, so many companies will be, oh, well, here, like I'm sitting and I'm talking to them, let's say we're going to determine whether we're going to work together. If any of your listeners and I end up ever working together, you will hear this question from me. That is this: why should I, as a prospect, choose to do business with you? Why should I choose you instead of all your competitors? And then I proceed to listen. Sometimes that answer is 5 minutes long. Sometimes that answer is 30 minutes long. But I let them answer the question, after which I thank them. And then I ask them, I say, now let me ask you something. Why do I know that if I went to any of your competitors, that they would pretty much have a very similar, if not identical answer to what you just told me? The reasons that they think are the reasons, it's like, oh, well, we're, it could be anything from, well, we're family owned, we're made in America, we've invested X amount of hours, X amount of money, we've done this R&D, we've had it tested on, on Siberian lions.
Sure.
It's whatever. And so that is the thing. They're looking in the wrong places, and you're never going to come up with the right answers looking in the wrong places. It's like the guy looking in the mirror. You can ask that mirror 45,000 times. You will not get a legitimate answer for what you should be wearing at this special event to achieve the end result that you want to achieve. You're looking in the wrong place.
You brought up this idea too of where are we looking for the right answers? And I think sometimes in D2C, the place that we try to find answers are in the nuances of data. And that's not wrong, but I think sometimes we're only looking at the subset of data that we have, and we're not looking at the data that we don't have. And so when we're looking at the data we have, it forces us to want to make these smaller incremental changes, but we're not looking at the data that we don't have. And by not seeing that, I think that we miss a part of the bigger picture of where we're going. And to me, when I think about the importance of branding, I see the plateau that you've talked about. I see that come up where it's like, great, we've nuanced this as much as we can within the ads platform. There's only so many more changes that we can make. We can maybe get, another 1%, 2%, 3%, but like, we're not going to make another 30, 40, 50% gain. Like, and you're adding on channels, but then you've added on most of the most big channels. And it's like, what are you going to go to now? Reddit? Fine. There's some value to be on Reddit ads as well. Like, we can continue to expand out channels, but there's only so much that you can do there. And the thing that's missing is this branding and this positioning that's taking place that makes people say, I absolutely have to have this. When we talked about lifetime value, we talked about how it increases brand loyalty, how to increase brand loyalty with LTV, and what LTV is really measuring.
The basic thing with lifetime value is no business is built on a one-time sale. It's built on, okay, I gave you a reason, I gave you a compelling reason to first engage with me, a brand. Now I need to give you continuing reasons why you should engage with me. And here's the amazing thing about that. Most companies will look at branding from the standpoint of, you know what? It's going to be like, we're going to attract the client. We're going to close the deal. They're going to complete their online sale, and we're going to be happy. Well, that's good. And here's the crazy part. Most companies think that that's successful. First of all, that's not only not successful, that's the beginning. That's not the finish line. That's the starting line. So what happens is that's literally only 2/3 of the actual branding pillars that actually make up the relationship. We have pre-sale branding, during sale branding, and post-sale branding. One of the things that's amazing, post-sale branding, is where we have the opportunity to leave not only a lasting impression, but to really build a relationship. The more a single brand builds in future into every action that they take, future, that means like, whoa. I mean, isn't it rewarding when someone says, I mean, look, you've experienced this, I've experienced this, anybody's experienced this. It's like, how did they know I needed that? It's like they're inside my head. That's pretty powerful. Well, that's post-sale branding. That's where you go, bang, yeah, we attracted your attention. We treated you like gold. It confirmed, it blew away any like possible, maybe I should, maybe I shouldn't. Takes you to the first finish line, which is actually the starting line. And now we arrive at a special place where we can now get to prove that they really made it. One of the great things, you and I being advocates of Apple, loving Apple, one of the great things that I love of Apple is the amazing engineering that goes into their boxes. When I unbox a product, it's like it fits like a freaking glove. It's the material is amazing. The every corner is perfect. It's not sloppily put together. That is post-sale branding. Do they need to do that? No. Does any other brand do that? No. They try. Some aspire to, but what does that do? That confirms, this $800, this $3,000, whatever the hell the price tag is, this is why I spent the money. It confirms. So what does that do as far as customer lifetime value? That makes the next sale 1,000% easier and almost a guarantee. And then the next and the next and the next. So what we're doing when we're actually creating a brand, pre-sale branding, and during the sale branding, and then post-sale branding, 95% of any of your competitors, anyone listening to this, 95% of them ignore post-sale branding. And when I say post-sale branding, that doesn't just mean, oh, you mean like when Amazon just like says, hey, you bought this, here's an email, and so maybe you'll like this too. Is that post-sale branding? Yes, it is. But it's a message. That's an email. I'm talking the experience. What are you going to do to elevate just the normal transaction into, wow, those guys blew me away? And I'll give you a very simple example when I moved out here.
Please.
It was within I think a year of me moving out here from the East Coast. And my wife and I, we were going to a movie in a nearby mall. We're here early. Why don't we go around, walk around the mall? And we went to a place and I was like, oh, great. You know what? I'm going to get some sneakers here. This is awesome. So I got some sneakers. The guy took great care of us. But here was the crazy part. I mean, he took great care of us. Got some good sneakers. He gave some good advice. 6 days later, I received a handwritten, freaking folded over card that said, hey, by the way, how did your and I was like, where did I freaking just move to Mayberry? What the hell is going on? I was like, you've got to be kidding me. And of course, he had my loyalty from that point on. It was a little gesture. It can be something like that. Or in the case of the chocolate company, here was an example. I made sure that box was not only gorgeous, but that sucker would survive a nuclear holocaust, okay? I'm saying that thing was so sturdy. Women, and I know it from husbands who once they learned that I was the guy that did it, they're like, oh, you're the guy. Because they refused to throw the boxes away. They would always reuse the boxes for recipes or for sewing stuff or for this or that. Those boxes had an afterlife. That's post-sales branding. I had a little mini billboard in their home all the freaking time, and that was smart and it was intentional. So these are examples that you want customer lifetime value. You need to build future into your brand, not just blah blah blah. Yeah, let's do it good and let's get the transaction and then let's follow up and hammer them with an email sequence. You know what? You and everybody else. You and everybody else. Trust me, if you're doing the same shit as everyone else, you're doing the same shit as everyone else. It's not because, but we're doing it, that doesn't make it special. Just like your passion isn't going to be the differentiator that separates your brand from your competitors. You've got to look at the world from out there inward. We're all being hit with a shit ton of noise. It is deafening. We have to outsmart that. If we're going to outperform that level of noise, we have to outsmart it. We have to outstrategize it. We have to outthink it. We have to like go, how the hell are we going to just totally reframe, change the game entirely, change the conversation entirely, change the standard entirely?
Yeah. I think you brought up those pillars, right? Like the pre-sell, during sell, post-sell. And that's coming out of your new book, if I'm correct, right?
No, I
covered
that in Brand Intervention, actually. I covered that in Brand Intervention.
Well, I must not have dog-eared that page. I apologize. But let's use this as an opportunity to transition into something that you told me in your new book, because I haven't read that one yet. You haven't given me that one yet.
Yep.
But the preview, which you said I might need to burn this after this here. I'm talking about that magic ingredient that made everything from the Seinfeld sitcom to the Rolling Stones, PayPal to the Rat Pack, and Motown, and the Declaration of Independence not only possible, but inevitable. The book's called Rich Brand, Poor Brand. What did you mean when you're saying this? Because I think this is where you're getting at with this, where it's like cutting through all of that noise. What is this?
Brands are a reflection of culture, and culture is a reflection of people, right? That's very simple, very logical. Okay. So at this point, I think culturally we have taken many steps backward. I think there's an overemphasis on being overly safe. There's an overemphasis of being, I'm willing to be insulted. There's an overemphasis on, well, let me just say things in the most vanilla way possible, so that way it may be meaningless, but at least I will not have offended anybody. And you know what?
Sure.
It's like that's not going to get us anywhere. So that overly cautious, that element has resulted in us diluting and compromising our most vital ingredient, which is our willingness, that level of conviction, that level of ownership, that level of undeniable, almost contagious. You know when you're in the presence of someone who's got that, because you're like, man, they are freaking all in. They are not going, yeah, I think so.
Yeah. It reminds me of one size fits all, right? One size fits all is another way of saying one size fits absolutely nobody, or maybe just a handful of people. But I think that that's what we've done with a lot of companies, a lot of brands, is we have said, how do we make sure that this brand fits everybody and not necessarily fit from an actual size standpoint, but like that it's absolutely right for everybody. But the reality is it can't be right for everybody. And so how do we do a better job? Let's just say it's lazy. It's lazy marketing. Do a better job of knowing who your ideal customers are and be absolutely irreplaceable to that group of people.
Yes. And the bottom line is that what most people don't get is they're looking for shortcuts. Well, you know what? Insight is the ultimate shortcut, and playing the long game is the ultimate shortcut. I mean, that's the bottom line. It's like, I always find it fascinating. Whenever I'm talking to a company and there's this desperation, they got to get sales now. They got to, it's like, well, wait a second. You're coming to me after you've already banged up your freaking vehicle, run it into like every wall that you could possibly see. And you're asking me, how come it can't go from 0 to 60 in 2.5 seconds? Excuse me, you screwed it up before you ever came here. So it's like, so now, are we going to have a real conversation, or are you going to give me this bullshit scenario? Because if you're that desperate, I already know that lack of money is not the cause of a company's problems. Lack of money is a symptom. I want everyone to get that. Lack of money is not the cause. Lack of money is not a cause of your problems, and lack of customers is not a cause of your problems. Those are symptoms. The only way you're going to remedy this stuff is by actually finding the cause, the levers that will move things forward. And sometimes whip out the whipped cream, you're going to eat some humble pie. You're going to eat the freaking humble pie with whipped cream all over that sucker because you screwed up. You screwed up. You made some bad calls, and that's okay. There's nothing wrong with making bad calls. What's wrong is making bad calls and then saying how right they are. Bullshit. If you screwed up, the best leaders will be able to say, you know what, that was the stupidest move I made. I made a bad choice. for XYZ reasons. This is what I did. I didn't correctly look at it. I was looking at it through filtered lenses. I was whatever.
Yeah. There's a lot of people may not realize this, but this is actually how your doctor works a little bit more. This seems counterintuitive, but your doctor says you've got these 3 or 4 different symptoms. 80% of the time, those symptoms are this. Here's the medicine. This is diagnostic to a point. Take this medicine. If you get better, I was right. If you don't get better, come back and see me and we'll figure something else out. But to a point, that's what we need to do for brands sometimes too, is we say, hey, look, when I see these couple of things going on, most likely there's an issue here. And if you just do A/B tests, you're never going to get anywhere, kind of to your point. You need to take this pill, and it's going to be a pill that's a little bit hard to swallow, but it's going to have some effect. And that effect is going to tell you if we made the right decision or not. If it works, great, we were right. If it doesn't work, okay, we were wrong, but we've at least very clearly identified that this was not the thing that you needed to do.
Yeah. And, you just reminded me of something, which was like, I actually ended up rebranding a naturopath who helps women with a drug-free solution for menopause. And when I was branding this company, here's the thing I learned. Imbalanced hormones, those are not the cause of menopause. Those are actually a symptom. I learned that from her. I was like, no shit. Because if you're approaching it from the standpoint, oh, well, that's the cause of your
Sure.
Are you ever going to come up with a workable solution? Hell no. But if you realize it as a symptom, that changes everything. So I'm fanatical when it comes to really finding what's the cause of this decline. So what's the thing that's going to shift things dramatically?
So let's say, hypothetical, let's say that I run an e-commerce retail brand, let's say doing 100 million, but only 5% of that is e-commerce. So we've got 5 million that's going towards e-commerce. The brand is very much based on all of the creative we have is very much catalog-based creative. We don't have a lot of good assets. And let's say that I'm the director of e-commerce for this brand and I'm bought into this. I get your book, I read it, and I say, yep, this is what needs to happen. How do I get buy-in from senior management that we need to invest in branding when senior management may think, this is my baby, I love it, it's worked so well for us so far? How do you go about, what are the things that you could say to get buy-in?
Very simple. Take quick inventory and you say, okay, what's our competition doing? What's our competition doing? What are the metrics? Say, oh, okay, our top competitor, they have 25% of their sales is e-commerce. Another competitor is 40, and our top competitor has 70% is e-commerce based. Now we go, holy crap. Now we have a barometer by which to go, they're 70 and we're 5. You've got to be able to look at and understand what are the numbers, what's possible in this space, and at the same time, now, that's unknown territory. Sometimes you're going to have unknown territory. Like, for example, when Steve Jobs said, we're going to do retail stores. And I loved all the naysayers at the time who were like, oh, it's going to fail. That's ridiculous. That's stupid. And there were all these naysayers. Well, it's the number one retail. It trumps everybody. But the interesting thing is I remember when they were developing the stores, 9 months into the development of the stores, they were using the model of the existing stores, meaning how products were laid out. So like if you and I go to a Best Buy, it's crap. You just see, okay, there's 45 laptops, here's 25 dryers, here's 50 TVs. And it's just like there's no anything. Well, Apple, after 9 months of doing this, I remember the guy who was in charge came to Steve, we got it all wrong. And Steve blew up. So what the hell do you mean we got it all wrong? And what they did is they built the stores around interests, meaning, oh, okay, this quadrant was video. This quadrant was for creative. This quadrant was for gaming. This quadrant was for music. And you could come in and actually simply just try the stuff out. Not in a high pressure scenario, but it actually became an extension of their own curiosity. If a brand is not fostering curiosity on the part of prospects, you are leaving hundreds of millions of dollars of revenue on the table. If you are not fostering curiosity, it's like, I want to know more. Just shouting at people the same shit they've heard from everybody else for decades is not the smart way to do business or do branding. If I'm not helping a client intrigue the imagination and curiosity on the part of their prospects, So you're like, wow, I didn't know that was possible. Well, that's interesting. I didn't know that. Da 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 da. And hitting on all these points just seduce me in a nice way at every point of contact. That's really what a brand needs to do. It's like you're in the industry of building curiosity, nice, high quality seduction, not low grade crap, and not just like cheesy little, hey, offer, buy now, 50% off, da 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 da, and all that kind of crap.
That's going to destroy your LTV. You don't want those customers.
That's right.
This next part might just absolutely blow up on us. And if that's the case, we can cut it out. But I wanted to kind of imagine like a scenario where we run through this. We've got a lot of customers that are shoe brands, apparel brands. And oftentimes, to your point, there's nothing that really separates them in any significant way from everybody else out there.
Yep.
How do those brands that are selling water in a can, what is the biggest way that a brand like that, and I want to keep it more on apparel though, apparel, shoes, things like that. What are some ways that they can cut through the noise instead of just going after features? We have this material or whatever, because it's like, that's fine. That works for a small segment of people, but most people don't care if you have this material. What are the better ways to approach cutting through the noise as an apparel brand?
Well, here's what I would do. I'll tell you very exactly what I would do. I would take inventory. I would do 3 columns, and I'd go pre-sales branding, during sales branding, post-sales branding. Okay, in terms of pre-sales branding, which is everything from your name to your slogan to your positioning to your advertising to et cetera. That's pre-sale. Okay, and then it's during sale, which is like whether it's online or if it's a brick and mortar, it's an inner location. Da 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 da. And then the post-sale. It's like take each one of those and say and list out. Take inventory. What is everyone doing? And what are we doing? Fill out those columns. Fill them out. What's everyone doing? What are we doing? How much of, and then start now doing analysis. How much of what we are doing is simply our version of what everyone else is doing? If you're at 90%, if you're at 80%, you are leaving money on the table. You are not building a brand, you're selling product. Don't confuse those two things. And you could sometimes be selling product, like you said earlier. You said, hey, we can get to 10 million, da, 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 da. Yeah, at a certain point, but then it's going to plateau out. And you go, well, why did it plateau? Because you didn't build a brand. You're just driving a sales machine. And yes, you need to have a strong sales machine. But if you build a sales machine on top of a brand, how many people need to actually ever be sold when they walk into an Apple store? 0. They walk in with their credit card. It's like, I want that color and I want that much memory. Thank you. Boom. Yep. And by the way, while they're walking back, and I'll take those earbuds and I'll take that microphone and I'll take that. It's like, boom, $5,000 later, $10,000 later. Great. And they're happy as a clam. Good. Yep. So the bottom line is you take those 3 pillars and you go, okay, what percentage of what we're doing is essentially our variation, our spin on what everyone else is doing? If it's a high percentage, you're in the shitter. You need to widen that gap. You need to go, okay, we are not thinking big enough. We are not playing big enough. We're taking incremental changes and think that they're going to actually be noticeable. It's like get a bit bold. It's like, you know what? What do you need to do to widen that gap? There's your $64,000 question. What steps do you need to take to widen that gap? Is it the experience when they get in the store? Is it the experience when they get online? Is it having something remarkable, something magical? What are you doing after the sale? What are you doing after the sale? Are you going to blow my mind? I'll give you a perfect simple example. And it's not apparel related, but it is absolutely from the standpoint of buying something off the catalog. So two, one East Coast and one West Coast artisanal food catalogs. One Williams Sonoma, and then the other one was D'Amico's. And so no, not D'Amico's. It's on the East Coast. Begins with a D. I haven't gotten their catalog in a while, so I don't know what the hell they're doing. But the thing is, they both had chocolate torts, like flourless chocolate torts. I'm a sucker for a really good flourless chocolate tort. I look at them, I could really not hardly tell the difference. Price is just about the same. I'm like, well, shit, which one should I take? And so I was like, you know what? screw it, I'm getting both of them, and I'll see which one's better. Okay,
Nice.
so I get both. Well, one of them comes, and it's like there, nicely presented, and it's just the tort. The other one comes, it's there, it's the tort, and on the top it says, this is the flourless chocolate tort, and on the back side of this little card, probably about 3 by 5, 3 by 4, on the back of the card is the recipe for bourbon whipped cream, which they say is the most wonderful accompaniment of that. Now, it's a post-sales branding. Let's see, what did it cost them? Probably about 2 cents to print up that card. What did it cost them in terms of labor to add that freaking card on top of that thing? Probably, I don't know, whatever. It didn't matter. Which one was I going to remain loyal to? Because I mentioned it earlier, I'm going to mention it again because I guarantee no one understood it to the extent that they need to. I talked about include the amount more future than your competition. They gave me more future. They thought ahead of the steps that I would be taking. That's how you include future. What are the next steps that your customer will inevitably take? You could do that in the pre-sales side. You could do that in the during sales side. You could do it in the post-sales side. What's the amount of future? Okay, so they're going here. Don't we love it when we go to a site and the site is like, they not only have that, but they now are providing the information that was our next question. And it's like, whoa, cool. They knew our journey. And it was like, wow, bang, there it is. So what happens is you must include and anticipate the next steps. And that's what I mean when I say include future in with everything. The more, who wins at the end of the day? The company that has the most amount of future incorporated into each of those steps. Who wins the business? Who has more customer lifetime value? Who has more brand loyalty? It is the company that builds more future into each of those steps. You build more future, you will be the winner. And it's commonly said, hey, the one that wins is the one with the best story. Yeah, that's true. But the bottom line is the one who wins amongst those who have the best story, it's going to be the one with the most future built into each of these 3 columns that we've been talking about. You do that, you will kick ass. That's how you build it.
It's brilliant. I love it. I'm going to move us from the future to the past because I do also like to talk a little bit about who is David Brier. And so I want to talk about your childhood. Let's just say, maybe not even childhood, but just why do you see branding in a way that's so different from other people?
I would say it's probably a number of different reasons. I mean, one is that for those that are seeing this, if you look where my finger's pointed, that's a painting I did of George Harrison when I was about 15 or 16 years old. A lot of this artwork you see over here, and there's tons of artwork over here that you don't see, and there's paintings over here, all kinds of stuff in the office, and that which you've been to, where we did that.
Right, and I didn't know you made that though. That's pretty cool.
Yeah. And so the thing is so I come from the standpoint of like, I know what it is to actually create. The most frustrating was when I was starting my career in New York and I saw art directors, and because I was a designer. Initially, I was just the logo designer. That's how I started, and I would work with art directors who couldn't even draw a sketch to describe to me what they had in their mind, and they're directing. Like, how the freaking hell can you do that? You can't even draw. So I come to it with that standpoint. The other thing is that I also was a drummer in my teens. So I've always been a big lover and admirer of music. So I appreciate, and my music goes everything from Motown to the Beatles to the to jazz to classical. I mean, I cover the gamut because there's a certain aesthetic that I appreciate, but I also appreciate there's a contrast. It's like something can't, like for example, a music can't go on, nor can a story go on or a movie go on. It's like da-dum, ba-dum, 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 ba-dum. We're like, okay, what is it going to be a change here? What's going on? We're like now getting restless. It's like, hello. So there's got to be like, it's got to be like Dun, bum, bum, dun, 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 It's like all of a sudden, whoa, okay, we're getting it now. So
Yeah.
so there's got to be a bit of that tension, a bit of that something that keeps us hooked, that keeps us connected. And so I'm looking at, and when I grew up in New York, we would oftentimes go to Greenwich Village. And we would go to where there was the art festival and around Washington Square Park. And I'd look at the street performers, and I'd smell the foods being cooked in the street, and I'd look at the different art. And I always was intrigued by something that would make me do a double take. And I'd go, what the hell? It's like, what is that? What is that thing? What is that smell? What is that sound? What is that amazing note that person just sang? And so things that just cut through, right? I was always fascinated with things that cut through, right? It's like, there was no shortage of visual stimuli in Greenwich Village. But what was the thing that just, boom, that totally made me go, whoa, I got to walk up and really check this artwork out. Or, okay, there's 40 different street performers. Why I'm blown away by that one. That really, and I wanted to know more about that.
Sure.
Come full circle to what we talked about earlier about where it is incumbent upon us. We must own our roles in commanding the curiosity and attention of those that we seek to communicate with. If we can't do that, get the hell out of business. Just work for somebody. If you're going to be an entrepreneur, if you're going to be a CEO, if you're going to build a brand, you need to be willing. How willing are you to actually command someone's attention, to actually do something to enough of a degree that you're willing to actually pique their curiosity? It's like, that's why, I love showing up at an event and talking and knowing that the first 15 seconds are going to be, have I hooked them or not? Have I done something to disrupt what they expected? Because if I just show up and I give them what they expect, will I be acceptable? Yes. Will I be memorable? No. Get that difference. Will I be acceptable? Yeah. Being acceptable is not an achievement. Yeah. Look, someone laying dead in a coffin is acceptable, okay? They're not offending anybody. Right. That's not an achievement.
Yeah.
But being memorable. Every moment of our interaction is a moment. We can leave a morsel, a breadcrumb of our legacy with every interaction. That's what we can do. And if we're not doing that, that is a forfeited opportunity.
That's a good point. You also talked earlier, we were talking about books and podcasts, and you had a good stance on books and podcasts as far as basically saying that too often people get books that are about topics, subjects that they're interested in versus ones that you can actually learn something. What do you mean by that?
I will admit freely, and I'm very comfortable admitting it because I know everyone listening to this is guilty of the same thing. How many books do we actually have on our bookshelves that we actually bought, that we thought was a great idea, but we never actually read? It's like, let's get real. Sure. Let's get real. Yeah.
It's on your book list, and you're like, I'll read it, and you don't.
Yeah. Exactly. And the cool thing is, and here's the cool thing. For those that actually, if you're just learning about this for the first time, and you're saying, just so you know, like, that's why I wrote my book with such big freaking type. Okay? I wanted to punch in the face. I wanted to punch in the face so that you didn't have to basically search for the goodies. Yeah. There are some folks, and look, and there's one particular person, sort of in my space. I respect his business acumen and his achievements. I find him boring as shit. I think he is as exciting. I think he's as exciting as watching tofu come to room temperature on my freaking kitchen counter. Okay, and so I'm not going to name him. But the bottom line is he's boring as shit. But he's a smart business person.
Sure.
He's built a decent brand. Would I trade places with him? Hell no. because I'd be bored out of my freaking wits. I'd want to hit my head against the wall. To me, if we're going to attract people to buy a book, or if we're going to attract them to watch a YouTube video or attract them to listen to our podcast, we need to reward them. We need to reward them with actionable things. And I think there are some people that really do that well. I think Alex Hormozy is really good.
Yeah,
I think Alex is. I think he's really smart. I mean, and Alex, if you're listening to this, you're an asshole because you didn't accept my invitation yet. I invited you to actually get on a thing with me. So Alex, if you are listening to this, or Layla, if you are listening to this as well, tell Alex, say, Alex, what are you, a freaking asshole? What are you, a butthead? You didn't freaking take David Brier's invitation, you asshole. Call him up now.
Shots fired.
And so
that's good.
And I will not arm wrestle with you, Alex. I know you'll kick my ass, but eat shit and die, buddy. You didn't freaking respond. So anyway, the basic thing is, but he rewards you. He gives you some good stuff. But there's some, I think Seth Godin has some great moments. I think Simon Sinek has some great moments. Yep. But let's be honest. I was blown away with Simon Sinek's, Start With Why, his TED Talk. That's how I first discovered him.
Yep.
Then I was like, if he can achieve this shit in 18 minutes, his book must blow my freaking mind. I got the book. I was completely heartbroken. I learned nothing more from the book. The best part of the book was in that. I never needed to do. He didn't give me more. He didn't take me to a new place.
Sure.
It was just the longer version. The TED Talk was the Cliff Notes version, which was great. That's all I wanted. So we must respect and reward, because what's going to happen is people are going to first invest with us. They're going to invest their time. Mm-hmm. That's in the form of trust. The question becomes, are we going to reward that trust where they've invested 5 minutes, 10 minutes, 20 minutes, 30 minutes, whatever it is? Are we going to reward that trust with something valuable? If we have not, we have lost that relationship. If we have rewarded them with something, then it will graduate where they're like, oh, maybe David has something more valuable to say in addition. I'll watch something else. Oh, wow, I was rewarded again. Oh, wow. Now if we become continually rewarding them for their trust in us, that will eventually evolve where now we're an authority, and we're a trusted source, and it will result in business or referrals. And that's as true for apparel as it is for food. How many people think that Gordon Ramsay is amazing, but have not yet eaten in one of his restaurants, but guaranteed.
Sure.
But if there's someplace where it's like, hey, like Vegas or someplace like, oh, there's a Gordon Ramsay thing, how quickly will they? It's like he's got the street cred. He has rewarded you and me with value because of whether you're watching his MasterChef, where he's more in a mentor role, or he's going for the full fiery theatrics, the pyrotechnics on freaking Hell's Kitchen, where he's like beating everybody's ass to the ground. But the bottom line is he's still rewarding, whether it's entertainment or information.
You have met some interesting people over the course of your career here.
Yep.
One personally that I have enjoyed is Damon John writing the foreword to your book. And I got to ask, how does that happen? Let's say I write a book in the future. How do I make sure I get either Damon John or a Damon John-like character to write the foreword of my book? What was it like meeting him? Tell me the story here.
Okay. So here's basically how it happened. I have a column. I have about 30, 40 articles on Fast Company. At the time, probably about the second season into Shark Tank, that was like my wife's and I, our guilty pleasure. It's like we would stay home and watch Shark Tank. We freaking loved it. We thought this was the coolest thing. And so we were like, I think it was just the second season. We were like, this is cool. So I was like, I really haven't seen anybody really write about, like, what is it that makes the difference of those that get a deal, an investor, and those that didn't? I said, so I'm going to do my own analysis. What is it? And so I wrote my own article on that. It was a great article, and it was well thought out, and I just gave my viewpoint. Within a couple of days, Damon John tweeted, "This is the best article ever written on Shark Tank."
Wow.
And I was like, son of a bitch. I'm like, how cool is that shit, right? So I see this come up on my feed, and I'm like, thanks, man. I said, I didn't know him at the time. Didn't I know him at the time? And so I was like, that's freaking cool. And so immediately I'm like, open door. I'm like, how can I leverage this? How can I build upon this? So I immediately thought, what can I do above the level of expectation? What can I do to exceed expectations? Because everything I've been talking about, that you and I have been talking about here, it's recognizing there's a bar that's been set, either deliberately or intentionally or not. There's a bar that's been set. Sometimes that bar is low, sometimes that bar is high, but it's an agreed upon bar. Whether through just actions or through customer expectations or customer demands, but it exists. And to the degree that we only meet that bar and that band is the degree that we fail. To the degree that we go beyond that is the degree that we succeed. So with that being said, I looked at this and I was like, I'm going to. So I need to wow Damon. How can I do this? I said, I want to write an article about Damon, and I'm going to tell him that I'm going to say, Damon, you need. And by this time I'd already thought it out, and all this probably took 20 minutes. It was like, this is real. My world is going. And so I'm like, all right. So I came up with a killer headline, and I said, you need a slogan that's just killer. And now I could tell by the speed with which he was responding, it's him. It's not someone doing his social media for him. And he goes, cool, man. Like what? And this is what I texted back. I messaged back. I said, Damon is a girl's best friend.
Nice.
And for those that might be young folk listening to this, that's from A Diamond is a Girl's Best Friend, a very famous line from an advertising. I think that's De Beers, actually, from their.
Sounds right.
And so if you're young and you've never heard that before, you could Google it. A diamond is a girl's best friend. There you go. But a Damon is a girl's best friend, and he was like, "That's awesome, right?" I mean, he loved it, right? And I said, "Cool, man. Let's schedule a time. I'd love to actually do an article based on this. Then we'll do an interview." He goes, "Cool. Let's set it up." So we set it up.
Amazing.
That's how it happened. So I didn't do it with the agenda of, oh, maybe I can attract the attention of one of the sharks, but I was like, I'm just going to do my thing. Yep. It's the same way that and I'll tell you as a side note, it's the same way that I actually met Claude Silver, who's Gary Vaynerchuk's number 2.
Yeah. Yep.
It's like, I saw an article on her and I was like, you're amazing. And I watched a few of her videos and I immediately fell in love with her. I mean, she's incredibly special, a very unique being, really from the heart, a very, very phenomenal person. And so I just simply sent her a message on LinkedIn. I just said, I want you to know. I said, I found you. I saw this and my jaw hit the ground. I said, you're amazing. I just want you to know that's just from me to you. You blew me away. You're amazing. And I want to thank you for being who you are. And thank you. And that was it. No expectation. And 4 days later, she was so open. And she was like, oh my God. She was like, thank you so much. That's like, she was like totally, she wasn't like, thanks so much. We'll be in touch. It wasn't like one of those. Sure. She didn't have that layer of corporate bureaucratic bullshit. That's, a cement suit. But that's basically how it happened. That's how Damon. So by the time they came so Damon and I started working on some little pet projects and stuff like that together. And I ended up then, by the time I was doing my book, I said, Damon, I'd love for you to write my forward. And it was that, I will tell anybody, my own personal philosophy and policy is when I am dealing with VIPs, I'm very, very deliberate and intentional with what I ask for and very intentional about what I don't ask for. I don't take lightly. I know that they're being bombarded. And again, it's the ability to look at the world, just like what I've been talking about. You got to look at the world of your audience. That's my audience.
Yeah.
I'm not going to ignore the fact. I mean, I remember asking Damon at one point. I said, "Dude, how many pitches do you get a day?" He goes, 100.
Yeah, I don't doubt it.
Every day. And people come to him, "Hey, my thing's special." Bullshit, you think your thing's special. The fact that you're even thinking that and you're coming up to him and thinking that he hasn't already been pitched 65 times shows the level of naivety that you have. Get real. So it's just the wider our awareness can be to all the sides of the relationship, the better off we are.
That reminds me a little bit of how I got my first article on, I believe it was Entrepreneur at the time. The subject line that I put in there, knowing your audience, I said, "Another boring pitch from a mediocre writer." I thought everybody's talking about how great they are. What do I put this in there? It did backfire on me. He actually replied back. He was like, "Well, then why would I even read it?" I was like, "Oh, no. Wait a minute. Hold on." But I got his attention, and it turned into eventually me getting on Entrepreneur.
Good. There you go.
One of the other things I like to talk about then are like, just to say, silly quirks or talents, things like that. And when we were talking about this, we jokingly said that you have a very good French accent. It is much better than most people. Mine, unfortunately, sounds a little bit like a sick Lumiere from The Beast.
Yes,
let's hear your.
It is, when I listen to you, it makes me kind of like stomach. It is disgusting. When you Americans try to stand like us French, it is a cultural insult. It is a slap in the face. You are disgusting. You make me just sick to my stomach.
That sounds very French. You actually, it reminds me yours is much better, but it reminds me of Pink Panther. Oh, who was the guy who played in that now? Drawing a blank on his name, but he's like hamburger.
Peter Sellers.
Yeah. Hamburger.
Oh yeah.
I don't know.
He was so bad. It was so bad. It was bad in a good way, but he was
bad in a good way. Yes. I want to wrap it up. You talked about rewarding trust. Is there some way that we can reward the trust that people have given us? And so we've talked about a lot of things that cover the gamut of branding. There's so much more we could go into. Is there any other thing that you would like to leave as like parting words of wisdom to people who are thinking about branding in some way, shape, or form?
Yeah. Stop sitting on the sidelines. Go into action fast. Find out what the hell works. Find out what doesn't work. Just stop the tentativeness. Stop the it's like, oh, we're going to read this and we're going to watch these YouTubes and we're going to do some tutorials and we're going to, about my masterclass. So during my 9-week masterclass, I put 100 entrepreneurs through the masterclass. They probably collectively had generated about 789 million in revenue since completing. Okay.
Wow.
The thing that's crazy though is that the amount of them that didn't know what branding was until I forced them to look at it, forced them to answer questions, forced them to start working it out. They couldn't look. The greatest challenge that anybody's going to have is, one, you may initially think we can do it all ourselves. Mm-hmm. That's one potential barrier. Another potential barrier is we know all about our product. We don't need anybody's help. If you're thinking that, I will tell you, because I love you, trust me, you're leaving money on the table. I already know that just by that admission, if you're saying that or thinking that, you're already are easily seeing 25 to 50% less actual revenue and income than if you actually looked at it honestly. Because the bottom line is you knowing about it is important. Your knowledge of your product, your knowledge of your service is important. It's one of your greatest assets. It's also one of your greatest liabilities because you're too freaking close to it. Mm-hmm. You don't know what's important because not all the things are equally important. Not every feature is equally important. Not every feature might even be a point that even differentiates you from your competition. So it's not like, well, we know what's important. Great. If all your competition knows the same thing, then you're all just adding to the noise, which comes back to the beginning of this, which is what everyone who should do anyway. You should listen to this entire thing again because this conversation was freaking, there was some fire and gold on this, man. This is, people should
Absolutely.
be paid. People should be sending you and me checks after listening to this. There's some, but the thing is it comes down to differentiation. If we don't differentiate, you're not even going to get on their radar. So it doesn't matter, but we're better then. Great. I'm glad you're better. I hope that you're better. I want you to be better. But that doesn't mean you're going to, you know, how many starving artists are there? How many starving genius entrepreneurs are there who have made the most incredible breakthrough in XYZ, but they couldn't brand it for crap? That's the stuff to look for. Just like, don't be tentative. If you're going to try it yourself and do it fast. Do it fast and do it deliberately. Don't go, well, I'll devote 30 minutes a day to bullshit. That's a cowardly move. Acknowledge it's a cowardly move. That means you're scared. Okay, good. It's okay to be scared. Now, just get the hell over it and just like freaking lean in. Seriously, do it for real. And then you'll know if you have the stomach for it or not. If you do, congratulations. That's incredible. If you don't, get the expertise of someone like myself. There aren't many that are like me, but you now know me. The bottom line is you should go out and buy yourself a freaking lottery ticket. Obviously, the fact that you've been listening to this and you're here listening to this right now, just obviously you're doing something right. Because you're listening, you're following William, you're following me. Boom, there it is.
David, if people wanted to follow you more, they wanted to interact with you, where is the best way for them to stay in touch with you?
Best way is certainly go to risingabovethenoise.com. Rising, R-I-S-I-N-G, risingabovethenoise.com. That's where you'll have the entire website and where I have over 300 actual articles where I show you brands that I take you through the journey. It's like I show you, here was the before, here was the after, here was the result, here's what we found. And I show you the actual stuff. Buy my book, Brand Intervention. And you can certainly reach out to me on LinkedIn. If you're kind of like, hey, you know what? I heard you and William. And you know what? And by the way, I really look closely at your two beards and I like William's better. I'm like, you know, I won't hold that against you. I'm okay with that. If you like William's beard better, that's fine. So the thing is you know, so there, risingabovethenoise.com, Brand Intervention, and reach out to me on LinkedIn. You could, there's other social channels, my YouTube channel, etc. But those are the three good core ones to connect with me on.
It's amazing. I appreciate it. David, it's been so good talking to you today. I appreciate you sharing your wisdom, time, and knowledge with us.
1000%, man. I had a blast.
Thanks again, and thanks everyone for listening. Have a great day.
I love the conversation that William and I had, and I hope that you got an immense amount of value out of this. It is powerful. We discussed tools that you need to implement right now, no delays, and this is so that you can pave the future, so you can pave the path to the future, opening doors and opening minds that you never even knew could be opened. All right. Keep on rocking, keep on shining, keep on branding. All right. See you next time.
Yeah.